Thank you.
I've already called Jerry Webb. I might have missed my call.
Was that earlier today?
Yeah, you called me this morning. I'm sorry.
Would you like to come up and testify now?
Sure. Thank you so much.
Please be brief.
I will. There are obviously people of goodwill on both sides of this issue. I appreciate the way you're conducting the hearing. My name is Jerry Webb. I'm a real estate broker in Eagle, Idaho. I've been a small business owner here for about 20 years. Prior to that time, I was serving as a Seventh-day Adventist pastor in Texas, Tennessee, and California for about 30. I have a doctorate in ministry from Fuller Theological Seminary. Listening to the testimony of several here this week, recounting the pain that they or a loved one have experienced as part of the LGBT community, has reawakened painful memories of my own. My sister was married to a pastor for about 20 years who divorced her to join the gay community. There was really nothing gay about it, not for him, for her, or for their child. The very word has been hijacked to mean something different than it did when I was a child. But for many years now, we have welcomed him and his partner to family functions involving his son and treated him with respect and courtesy. I don't see how anyone can listen to the painful testimonies that we've been hearing from the LGBT community members here without feeling compassion and wanting to find a solution. However, this group does not have any corner on pain or tragedy. I've also witnessed the heart-wrenching breakup of far too many heterosexual homes. Talk about pain and financial difficulties and job losses and, yes, even some stigma. In fact, my sense is that if we were to have a parade of honest witnesses on the difficulties of life after divorce, the heart-rending testimonies could go on in this committee room for years. After watching Tyler Perry's film, Mr. Deeds, my wife and I became convicted about the plight faced by single mothers. We're trying to do something to help that by supporting the Boise Rescue Mission. And I would prefer to pass a law that would just take care of all the pain. That would be wonderful if we could do it. I hurt with LGBT persons who struggle, and I'm tired of seeing our children, including my own grandchildren, having to be shuttled between parents who don't live together anymore. If legislation could solve the problem, I would be all in for passing it, but it won't, and many of our speakers have admitted as much. In fact, it will only further complicate an already difficult situation and lead to more litigation. We don't need more laws promoting employment opportunities for the attorneys. My son and son-in-laws are both attorneys, and they're very busy already.
We have about 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll skip to the end. Frankly, I don't believe government should be even involved in the marriage business at all. Have civil unions, property rights and hospital visitation, but stay out of the business of trying to define an institution that belongs only to God and not to Caesar. Several years ago, I was serving a lesbian couple looking to move to Idaho and wanting to buy a home here. They made at least 2 trips, and I showed them houses. All went well for a time. I prayerfully treated them with respect and courtesy, just as I think Jesus would want me to do. And then one day they read something, I think it was on Facebook, that inferred that I didn't personally believe in their lifestyle choice. Well, that ended our working relationship, not because of my intolerance, but theirs. I was fired and I think defriended. Now, did I go to the government and ask for redress, try to get a law passed to force them to continue using my services, even if they didn't feel comfortable any longer? No, this is a free country. They could move their business to someone else. Let's keep it that way for both sides of this difficult issue and treat each other with courtesy and respect. That's why I'm opposed to House Bill 2, and I'd like to leave this here for the record.
Please do. Are there questions? Thank you very much. Last name of Sanders. Not here now. Scott Nicholson. Matthew Montoya. Megan Greco. Catherine Railsback. Mohan Farid. Please step up, state your name.
Hello, my name is Matthew Montoya. Sorry, I'm a little winded. I heard my name when I was at my office, so I came down here. Thank you, Chairman. And
We're glad you
people-
heard.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman and people of the committee. My name is Matthew Montoya. I'm submitting my testimony on behalf of myself and my father, Marvin Montoya, who's a small business owner. I've had the privilege of working for my father, who has had 30 years' experience in the healthcare field as a group benefit administrator here in Idaho. He also does business nationally. During my freshman year of college, I was looking for a part-time job, and I had asked my father if I could come to work for him. He informed me that I would have to submit a resume to the VP of Operations and do an interview. I should have known better because this was the way that I grew up, not to expect anything that we aren't willing to earn for ourselves. I was hired and began working part-time in the mailroom. I worked with a diverse group of people, and many of them did not know I was the owner's son for much time after that. My father employed people based on their merits, their willingness to learn and work hard, and I suspect these were the same reasons why I was hired. My father, having grown up Hispanic and an Army brat, knows what discrimination looks like and feels like. His family was usually paired in housing with other families of color on the base. Likewise, my father knew what discrimination based on sexual orientation was like, as his younger brother was gay. This he knew at a very young age when my uncle would be bullied and my father was always there to protect him. This protection of him extended to when my uncle was drafted into Vietnam. Knowing that my uncle, Gregory, was unlikely to thrive in the current military culture, he enlisted himself and served 2 tours in Vietnam so that my uncle would not have to be deployed. The reason for this background is because my father understands discrimination. He also understands business, being a successful business owner himself. His concerns have been growing with the increasing negative perception of Idaho in the business community. My father is a representative of Idaho business, and he finds it hard to explain to large employers who would like to bring business to Idaho why we don't have the necessary protections under the law that shows Idaho is dedicated to protecting its workforce.
About 30 seconds remaining.
Some of the debate has been around defining words such as sexual orientation and gender identity. However, we all have a sexual orientation and we all have a gender identity. I'm not here to debate the morality of homosexuality, and I don't really believe that you should be doing the same as either. Therefore, I don't think these are special protections. I think these are equal protections. Full disclosure, I am gay myself. I consider myself to be lucky to grow up in the family that I did, which was a Christian family. We have the values that I think we share with many Idahoans. As a worker in Idaho, and I think I work hard, I feel that I should have the protections just as everybody else has when it comes to housing and employment, and as well as our public spaces. I would urge you to pass this bill. I do think that we need these protections, and now's the time. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you. Megan Greco? Catherine Railsback? Mohan Farid? Mia Lanza? Ashley Hunt? Marie Leviton? Thad Butterworth? Mona Morrison? We'll figure out a way to turn that on for you. There's a switch at the base, I think, of the microphone. State your name for the record.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Marie, AKA Mel Leviton. Mr. Chairman and members of the House State Affairs Committee, I'm here today to testify in support of HB 2. I'm a resident of District 16 in Boise. I represent myself. To get through things quickly, most of what a lot of people for HB 2 said. Childhood, traumatic and abusive, lots of trauma, suicidal, da-da-da-da-da. Adulthood, different. I've got adult kids. I have a lovely wife. I have grandchildren that I love a lot. So that's quick. Until this afternoon, I resisted a request to request a reasonable accommodation to speak sooner based on my disability. It's medically very difficult for me to sit in a wheelchair all day long for 15 hours. I do it. I've gone back and forth between work and here and not transferred as often. However, I don't believe that it's any more important for me to be able to share what I have to say than it is anyone else. I'm already part of a protected group based on my disability through state and federal and local law. I work in the disability rights field. When I thanked my executive director for his support and told him how much I appreciated it, but as I walked away, I said, "Don't worry, I won't mention our name." He said, "Oh no, please do." I work at Disability Rights Idaho. My executive director is Jim Baugh. I'm proud that I work there. I worked there, when I started working there, we already had an inclusive policy. We were one of the first companies in the state to allow domestic partner benefits when Regents brought those into the state, when it became lucrative for them to do so. I'm proud of where I work. I work in a great environment. I'm lucky. That hasn't always been the case. I have lost my job based on my sexual orientation and been told that. Let's not fool ourselves. We live in a right-to-work state. If somebody wants to fire us, they can. They just have to be discreet enough not to tell us why. If they don't want to hire us, they just have to be discreet enough not to tell us why. When I submit a resume, I do not mention my disability. However, when I come into the door, they see it and they decide what's safe for them to do. With my gender identity, people see what they see. I've been told I've been obvious since I was beat up when I was a little kid and called names that I had no idea what they meant, but I knew not to ask my mother. Bathrooms. You want to talk about bathrooms? I have to use a bathroom on a clock, just like this clock. The bathrooms here are frequently not accessible or not functioning. So I have to make a determination. Am I going to use a men's or am I going to use a women's? Because I just have to go. Otherwise, I'll blow out a kidney. I would encourage you to look beyond just what you see. Look beyond it. It's important. We matter. We all matter. Will the laws protect us from frivolous lawsuits? Probably, because we have juries and judges that are fairly conservative in this state. I could file lawsuits all over the place based on my disability. It happens in other states, and settlements are made. But not in Idaho.
Your time has expired, so please wrap it up.
Thank you. I will wrap it up. That's it. I sit for questions.
Are there questions? Representative McCrosty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Ms. Leviton, I do want to say that it causes me great pride to see so many people from District 16, including yourself, coming up and being this engaged in the process. Before I ask my real question, I'd like to find out, do you live in Boise or do you live in Garden City?
I live in Boise.
Thank you. So follow up, Mr. Chair.
Representative McCrosty.
So you are already part of a protected group based on your disability, and you live in a city that already has a non-discrimination ordinance. Why is it important to have HB 2 pass, where you already experience a lot of protections?
We had to find new housing last year. It's very difficult to find accessible single-story housing anywhere. I got a call via a stranger about the perfect house. It was totally accessible, something I had never had before. I was terrified to tell this man, who I did not know, and who was only willing to rent to a single person. He didn't want a roommate situation. I could have gone with my wife is my support person because she is of color, and people often make an assumption based on the fact that I'm in a wheelchair that I need 24/7 care, and that she's my support person. So I could have gone to that. However, he lived next door, and I didn't want to live like that. So I held my breath, and I said, we're a couple. We're not going to separate. And he said, that changes everything. Of course you can move next door to me. I know that that's not a common occurrence in this state because I've lived all across this state. So it's important to me to be able to share that positive.
Thank you.
Further
Thank you.
questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mona Morrison. Your name?
Scott Nicholson.
Did I call you already?
Yes.
Would you step up then? Oh, okay, go ahead. Come on up and testify.
Mr. Chairman. My name is Scott Nicholson. I'm a resident of Idaho. I'm a civil engineer, former CB officer in the Naval Civil Engineering Corps, Vietnam veteran. 30 years in industry, came to Idaho in 2001 to work for an engineer here. I now work in the commercial real estate field. Married to the same woman for over 40 years now. Father of 2 children, both of whom reside here in Idaho. Elder in my church, lifelong Republican. Idaho is our home. Our family and our friends are here. I grew up in the South during segregation. I've seen the white-only restrooms, the water fountains, the dining areas of Woolworths, much of which was justified under the name of religion. It seems rather unbelievable now that such was the case. I've listened to the testimony here, and I've heard God mentioned so much. I've not heard God mentioned so much since I attended a Billy Graham rally. We're a religiously diverse community. Religious freedom is not under attack here. Equal rights under the law are what we're discussing. Relative to our Constitution and our laws, it is in discussions such as this that I fully appreciate why our forefathers put some distance between church and state. We're never going to get consensus on religious interpretations. Many of the arguments I've heard are the same arguments claimed during our civil rights debates. To quote probably thousands of political quotes from national leadership, declare church and state forever separate and distinct, but distinct for each within their proper spheres. That was President Grant. Is there any absolute in such matters? Of course not. But it illustrates the issue of overreach by either politics or religion. We have to take great care, but at the end of the day, we're joined together under a common constitution, not one common religion. We've had time to reflect on these issues. Yes, as individuals, we're each pulled by our own belief systems and our fears. Some of those beliefs are limited to our worldview, our individual faith, and by our own experiences. We're all on our own paths, but we are joined together under one constitution, not one religion. We're simultaneously seeing great religious
About 30
organizations.
seconds left. sir.
Excuse me, please?
About 30 seconds.
Got it. We've heard reflections of the new pope. We're hearing from the Mormon Church. I believe they are supportive of including protections in the civil rights of our LGBT citizens. I don't come here easily. I spent the majority of my life insulated without significant interactions with the LGBT community. Over my career, I met, supervised, and worked with members of that community. When you boil it all down, They're just folks who want the same things I do and you do when it comes to equal and fair treatment. I urge you to vote yes on this bill.
Are there questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Jordan.
Mr. Nicholson. Sorry.
I'm ready to go.
Good, thank you. And thank you for being here. Now, I appreciate that you mentioned segregation in the South, and you were from that area prior to moving to Idaho. Now, with your experience, I've heard, and again, this goes back to my argument before. I was just talking to a woman about religion prior to this hearing, and she had mentioned to me that religion supersedes everything else in life, whether it's age, disability, race. She felt that none of those compared to religion. How do you feel about that?
I have my own beliefs.
Please step up to the microphone so
I'll
the
do
whole
it.
world can hear you.
I apologize, I have a little bit of a cold. I understand that thought process, and it's tough. We all struggle with it. I mean, come on. But again, in our civil society, we're bound by our common constitution. My gosh, we all have, if you think the religions agree, you need to come to a church session with me, because we don't agree at all on some issues. So we all have our own beliefs. But in our civil society, we're not bound by that. We're bound by our Constitution. I hope that helps.
Yes, it very much does. And I have to tell you that you remind me like my father. Only my father has long white hair. Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you, sir. Mona Morrison. Fiona Hoyle. John Primrose. Bob Solomon. Let's see. Nope, he didn't want to testify. Lisa Semler. Come testify.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, quick question. I didn't notice if that man submitted his written comments and if he would be willing to do so. The previous speaker. Did he submit written comments?
Okay. They are here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Fiona Kilfoyle. I was born in Idaho, was raised here, I've worked my professional life here. I pay taxes, I own a home, I am married. I'm involved socially with a number of local organizations and groups. I am transgender. I'm also bisexual, the hidden B in LGBT. I'm an Idahoan. I'm lucky to be in a situation where I can live openly, as my employer is a multinational corporation and has its internal policies which prevent discrimination. A lot of the people you have heard in the past 3 days are not as lucky as I am. This does not mean that I am not harassed every single day that I live here, on the streets, in the stores of Boise. But I weather this in order to affect change in our society. Many have said that this legislation won't make people kind. This is true. What this legislation will do is allow us to live without fear that we'll be fired or evicted for being who we are. My way to help people kinder is to do this. I get to know everyone. People meet me, understand who I am, what my story is. I see some of these people all the time, regularly, at the supermarket, gas station, movie theater, restaurants, etc. And they take that experience with them. Later, they might be kinder to a brother, sister, niece, nephew, coworker, someone else they meet at the supermarket. And maybe, just maybe, that they reach out to this person with more kindness than maybe they had before. That could be the moment that helps a coworker retain their job, prevents the situation from becoming violent with a stranger, or saves the life of a person in crisis. This bill can maintain a level playing field and save lives while letting all of us change the hearts of Idahoans. Please pass this bill to the floor with a recommendation to pass. Thank you.
Are there questions? Representative? Oh, it's you. No, I'm really struggling between the two microphones over there. My depth perception isn't what it used to be. Representative Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't take that personally. Fiona, may I call you Fiona? Thank you for coming. Couple questions, if that's okay, Mr. Chair. You indicated that you said you'd been harassed pretty much on a daily basis. What do you do when you're harassed?
Chairman, Representative. Depending on, I guess, the safety I feel in a situation, I may ask them why they're that way, or I might avoid the situation. It is hard to be harassed, and one does not always have the strength needed to confront it.
Follow-up.
Representative Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fiona, have you ever filed a complaint or sought any kind of formal recourse when somebody has harassed or tried to harm you?
In public, sorry?
Yes.
I have not. It can be a passing event in your day, and the potential to report that offense might put you in further harm's way just to get the information you would need to file an offense. It's very hard to call the police station and say 3 guys outside of a club harassed and followed me down the street. Like it's not safe for me to collect their names. So no, I have not.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave my testimony.
John Primrose. Lisa Simler. I know Representative Rubel would love to get up to the microphone. Think you can do this in less than 3 minutes? You're on the clock. It's already on.
It's already on. Thank you so much. I will be very brief. I know exactly what you've been through here. I'm here because I wanted to talk to you about the Attorney General opinion that I had requested, do a quick walkthrough of that, make sure it's on the record, and that we've highlighted some of the points that I think are
It
important.
is part of the record already.
It is part of the record. There are 3 main questions that I had asked. The first was, are there existing protections? Because I know we'd all received a number of emails saying there are sufficient protections under the law. The first question addresses that there are not, either under federal or state provisions. If a person finds themselves fired tomorrow when their employer finds out they're gay, they do not currently have any recourse. The second, and is the one I want to dwell on the most here, is whether there would be any forcing of the clergy to marry gay couples. I think it's been clear that there's not. The third is whether there's any limitation on freedom of speech. The opinion makes clear that there's not. But the thing that I want to highlight here for you is just walking through the extent to which there are existing protections for many of the concerns you all have articulated. I know that many of you are wrestling, as Representative Crane identified, with the need to balance the need to protect so many of our citizens that are suffering from discrimination against the need to protect against religious discrimination and protect religious freedoms. But our predecessors have done a lot of this heavy lifting, as I think this opinion makes clear. First, Section 5902 exempts employers with 5 or fewer employees. So on the employment protections, that would exclude many of the small businesses that I know you all are concerned about. We've discussed a lot about 5910 and the religious exemptions, but what I really want to get to is the baker, because I know that is foremost on your mind. And the text here on the opinion on page 3 references section 73402 of the code. And I just want to make sure that that's on your mind as you consider this, because that is a defense that's been available to all bakers for quite some time, because since the inception of this act, there may have been bakers that didn't want to bake for interracial couples or Jewish couples or Mormon couples or whatever. And they have had available to them section 73402, and that section ostensibly provides, that's the religious freedom protection provision, which indicates that they have a defense in any action under any state law, including this one, that there has to be the least restrictive means of furthering a compelling governmental interest. So any baker, any photographer, anybody can come forth and say, this is not, that as a applied to me, this is not the least restrictive means of promoting a government interest. So
You've
for
got
those
20 seconds.
For those handful of acres out there, and I've heard nationwide about 5 referenced, but there is a means to provide this protection against discrimination and protect those bakers, and it is provided under existing law, and it is provided under the existing sections. So with that, I stand for any questions.